Hi, this is my latest project, and I've done a few projects, so I'll show you through this one. This is based on an American board track racer from about the turn around about 1910. There were Patterson and Indian and Harley Davidson. Quite a lot of manufacturers were producing motorised bicycles with a huge, usually a litre engine sitting in a cradle frame like this, driving directly to the back wheel, no gearbox, no clutch and no brakes, and they raced around a sort of an oval boarded track. And it's become quite popular to make replicas of them, and this is my version of it. The idea is that it's to be road legal in this country, and that means it can't be powered by the four-stroke motor that's going to be sitting here. So this will be powered by an electric motor with an alternator driven by the four-stroke engine. So I've got here a couple of early Briggs & Stratton motors that are cast iron. They're as heavy as can be. This one puts out 1.5 horsepower. This one's about 3 horsepower. They both run pretty well. I've pulled them apart and made sure they start easily. They've got their own coil and flywheel. This one has a bigger inlet and a carburetor with a float chamber. This one has a very simple siphon system and needs a float chamber with it. So I can use either of these. They're interchangeable. I've made the output shaft the same size, but I intend to use this one, slightly more horsepower. It runs a little bit better. Now, come and have a look at this bike. This was from an early English bicycle built in the 1930s, which I purchased very inexpensive. And I've used some of the key components, this bit here and the forks mainly. The rest of it is just welded up to shape, based on an internet pattern with a 54-inch wheel span and a slightly forward-canted, forward-raked front wheel like this, and then an auxiliary suspension system of my own design, sort of a girder system with a pivot point that you can see here. And the idea is the bike is to be rat rod style, which means it's got to look rusty like you found it in a barn, like it's a new discovery. These wheels came with internal brake hubs, which are ideal for what I want to do, and there's a Sturmey Archer internal geared hub here that I may or may not use. I haven't decided yet. But the guts of the bike is in this component here, and it's taken me several months to design and build. But it is basically an idler shaft that provides the power to the left-hand chain and sprocket, with the electric motor driving this chain sprocket here and the main drive on this one, and the four-stroke engine can be connected in via this belt drive here. These are two separate axles, one for the pedal that runs completely independent and one for the jack shaft for the main drive unit. So two sets of twin bearings with the inside shaft sort of double bearinged really, so that it doesn't contact any of the outside surrounds. So the pedals go on something like this with an old-fashioned tapered pin. So that works fine. Here are the key components that are going on. This is a 600 watt inexpensive internally geared electric motor that will sit on a little pivot point here with a direct chain drive to this internal sprocket here. Believe it or not, it all fits, only just, but it fits with clearance around there. And then the motor will sit on this platform here, like this. Bolts drop into the bolt holes that I've already made, and that's been nice and squared up and welded or brazed onto the frame of the bike. There we go. And then the alternator, which will charge the battery, sits in under here like this, pivoted again on the frame with a direct chain drive to a small sprocket, so it's geared up 2 to 1, so that should turn and provide considerable energy, perhaps 4 or 5 amps of charging power. Now, the bike battery is again the lowest price battery I could get. It's a 48 volt lithium ion battery, and it will sit inside a torpedo shaped tank that sits between these two bars here, so it'll not be visible. And then the controller and the electronics will all sit either inside the tank that looks like a petrol tank, or the tank that sits down here that looks like an oil tank. So more examples of that later. The other clever idea I got was this, is that somehow you need to be able to start the motor, and the best way would be to use the electric drive and connect in the motor through its built accessory system. But you need the rear wheel off the ground to achieve this, and this is the idea of this. This is a double stand. It happens to just drop over this rear axle shaft extensions here. It has a little pivot so that it sits neatly there, just over the centre line, so it's an over-centred double stand, and you could potentially sit on the seat while you start the bike and run it. So those are the main guts. You can watch through the project as it progresses. It's going to take me 2 or 3 more months to finish it, I think. Couple of keys. I have this magic paint, which is a Dulux product, and it's called rust paint. And it doesn't just look rusty, it actually is rusty. You paint on rust, you put on metal flecks inside a paint and then use an acid to tarnish them immediately. And I've seen it, it looks very, very convincing. It does look just like rust. It's all streaky and very effective, and I'll probably use that in various components, particularly the tanks, which I'm going to make out of fiberglass. They should look like beaten old, partly painted, partly rusty tanks. I'll show you around my workshop just to finish. What gear do you need to make this sort of stuff? I've got a small C4C lathe here that I use, and some quick change tool posts, and that's quite fun. And I have a small older English or a senior mill that I've converted to metric, as I like to work in metric, and a fairly small workspace over this side, a mill drill, and that's sufficient to do this sort of task. I have a compressor, used compressed air, and I can spray the painted bits as I need them.